So, I think just gonna wait a little bit. Hi everyone. Welcome to the Women in Leadership panel in spirituality. We're really excited to have you all here. My name is Panuki. Thank you so much for bearing with us to make a circle. We wanted this to be a little bit more intimate, and we have an awesome panel here of very amazing women. And what we're going to do, my name is Panuki. I am on NYLC's board of directors, and I was on NYLC's YAC for 2 years. I'm really excited to be here and moderate this, this panel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go down the line and introduce all these amazing women. They will introduce themselves, and then they will also say who was the greatest influence in their life. And so, who would like to start? Would you like to start?
Oh, we'll start that.
Good morning. How nice that we can all be together, gathered. I am Nan Peterson, Director of Service Learning at the Blake School here in Minneapolis, and the Shun Yuen Senior Fellow. I'm a sister to 4 brothers, a mother to 4 sons, and a grandmother of 4 perfect grandchildren. I love gardens, I love the opera, I love reading, I love friends, I love travel. I believe in the possibility of service, I believe in the hope of peace. My mother, St. Margaret, was the most influential woman in my life. She was strong in her Irish Catholic faith, in her roots. She was kind, gentle, compassionate, strong, bright, and funny. She taught me the values of education and of connection to others. She taught me to see beauty in the world. She taught me the joy of reading and the importance of family. By her example, she also taught me to value myself. She, as women of her era, did not excel in self-care. However, she encouraged me to do what she could to encourage me to watch out for myself as I watched out for others. She, by her example, encouraged me to love my neighbor, feed the hungry, attend the sick, care for the poor. My interest in service was inspired by her lived experience and her example.
Thank you, Nan. I'm Pam Toole, and I work with Compass Institute with my husband. It's just a small nonprofit. And I think one of the reasons I may be on the panel today, I was also the co-developer of a program called Sustaining the Soul That Serves. And as I thought through, you know, there have been a number of mentors in my life for which I feel grateful. But interestingly enough, I chose the exact same person in my life as Nan did, which is my mother. And sadly, she passed away just 2 weeks ago. So I'm still in a, in a real deep state of mourning. But I will say, I thought if you are blessed to have a parent that is a role model and is special, there's nothing like it because it's a foundation for your life. And 2 things that I'll mention many things, but 2 comments in my life from my mother. At one point, I don't remember if I was a teenager, and I said, "Mom, how would you feel if I married someone of a different race?" And she said, "Pam, whoever you marry will be very special. It's about their character, and it's about how they treat you." End of comment. Another time when I was quite young, I grew up in several countries, and we had moved somewhere, and I was 8 years old, and I had bricks thrown at me because I was an American. The children, my children, they didn't know me, and I was so upset. And I went in, and my mom was, "Pam, they don't know you at all. You just wait. Someday they're going to be your friends. They need to get to know you, and they don't know even what they're doing." So sure enough, I lived there almost 5 years, and when I was moving away 5 years later, these same children were out crying that I was moving away. But there were many ways my parents could have handled that, and they handled it in a certain way. But I think most of all, given because the theme of this panel is peace building and spirituality, and my mom, as she got older, faith became so very deep for her. And she studied many religions, though she thought of herself as a Christian, but she studied other religions. And for her it's not the reading, it's the becoming. So she'd always be saying, Pam, I don't quite have my harmony yet. I still was bothered by such and such. And so always working for harmony in that. And then finally I remember growing up that there was never a sense of pushing me, but always a sense of you can be anything. So I can remember saying, if you want to be an astronaut, you can be an astronaut. If you want to be this, you can be that. And so all possibilities were there. So I'm eternally grateful for the mother I had.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Emiko Tsunozaki. I am made in Japan, and I serve as a clergy bishop, reverend for the traditional Buddhist temple called Shinyoen. I serve in the branch in New York, and I'm New Yorker, but actually with the Aloha spirit because I live in Hawaii for 20 years. At that time, I was a beach bum, and I was nothing to do with being a reverend or religion and spirituality. But I come to know the importance of spirituality. And truly, the head of the order, Her Holiness Keishu Shinso, who is the head of the Shinoen, inspired me because her leadership, she's a lady, she's a woman. Her leadership as a woman comes out of true compassion, loving. That guidance really nurtured me up to this point. And therefore, her leadership, and that really inspired me. Of course, I agree with the two ladies. My mother is also inspiring me who I am, but up to coming here is really the whole holiness, her leadership inspired me. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Naomi. I'm from Nashville via Soweto, and I run Nozizwe Consulting, which is a diversity consulting. Nozizwe means Mother of Many Lands, which is a diversity consulting and an educational tours to South Africa company. When I'm at this time trying to get my children out of my house, telling them it's time to move on and spread your wings. I love you, but I know I'll love you even more when you're not here. And the women who have inspired me in my life are my grandmothers. I was really fortunate growing up to live with my paternal grandparents for a few years, and my maternal grandmother made sure that she came to see me almost every day. My parents were living in England at that time. And what was very striking about my grandmothers is that they were such opposites. Even physically, my mother's mother was tall and skinny, and my dad's mom was short and plump. And when they stood next to each other, you wouldn't think there was anything in common. And yet they kind of taught me a balance in that my mother's mother was widowed very young with 3 children and no education, and went out to work as a domestic worker in order to educate her children, but in particular, her daughter. And she said that she was very clear that if anything were to happen in her daughter's life, she would never find herself in the place that my grandmother found herself, unskilled, unable to take care of her children. And she was this strong. My father's mother was the soft person in our family. We used to call her the comforter of the afflicted, because if there was an argument going on in the family, she would always take the side of the person who was losing. And as soon as that person started winning, she would switch sides and be on the opposite side. And her home was always open. There were always more people than I knew sitting around our table, spending the night, being cared for her. And so I got from them strength and compassion.
I don't know if I'm my name is Kate Cumbo, and I am the Director of Programs for the Peace Jam Foundation. So we have 13 Nobel Peace Laureates that are on our board. So I'll talk a little later about some of the inspiration I get from them. One of them is obviously Naomi's father, Desmond Tutu. So, you know, I think I have the greatest job in the whole wide world, but we'll talk about that later. I think that when we all think about who influences us, if we have a mother in our homes, often how can she not be influencing us? And so I think that really first and foremost, it is our mothers. And for us to all stop and think about, whenever we do a birthing in my tradition, we do a blessing way. I don't know if anyone's ever been to a blessing way, but the first thing we do in a blessing way is we call in our ancestors to be with us in that space. And so we often call, I am, Catherine, the daughter of Caroline, the granddaughter of Beulah, and call in those spirits and make sure they're with us at all times. And I think that we lose sight of the fact that our ancestors never leave us. Anyone seen the movie Mulan? And it's like, and Mulan's stuck with those ancestors. And whether they want to or not, they have to help her. And I think that we all forget that those ancestors are always with us in everything that we do. And we can call on them because they have to help us. And we're never alone. And so, especially for the young people in the room, if they're still here, but remember that those ancestors are all there with you. And you can talk to them and you can call on them just like Mulan did. My mother was a paranoid schizophrenic, and she would never have accepted that label, and she was the feistiest thing you ever saw, 98 pounds, and was fearless. And she would stand up to New York City cops, and just growing up with such an incredibly fearless woman who heard voices. We got Christmas presents from all her inner beings, and it was this beautiful acceptance of that there are multiple realities in everybody's world. And I think sometimes we forget that, that it's okay to be a little crazy. Mm-hmm. And so she taught me that we all can be a little bit crazy, and really the flat world that we live in and see is really not reality. That there is this beautiful depth of reality where we have ancestors and we have maybe past lives. We have many things that are happening on multiple planes. And as a small child, by 10 years old, I understood what past lives were, what multiple inner beings were, what ancestors were. I mean, so all of a sudden the world for me was multidimensional, and anything is possible when you think about that life is not just this flat thing that we often sell ourselves, or the media tries to sell us that it is. And so I just want to leave that with everybody, this thought that this is a real adventure, and there is so much behind the curtain that maybe people don't want us to see. And what's behind your curtain? And really take that time to think and explore who are the people in your lives, why are they there at certain times to guide you, why is your mother there in this time around for you, your parents, your children, they're all teaching you something. And I guess I just encourage you all, like my mother lived every day was a freaking adventure. You never know who was waking up in the house that day. And so as a child, I really learned to be like, okay, what do we got today? What does reality look like today? And so challenge yourselves to shake up your own reality and call on those ancestors.
Well said. Well, thank you guys so much for welcome to those who just walked in. We're really excited to have this panel here. And I think something that we have seen here is like how women have been influenced by their mothers. But also, I think what we're going to do is we have some prescribed questions that we're going to attend to, and then open it up a little bit later to Q&A with the audience. And so one of the first questions that I think is we should start out with is, what did you want to do when you were growing up? Because we have Nan at the Blake School, and we have you at Peace Jam, and you as a Reverend. So like, how did you get to that, or what did you want to be before that? And we can start this side now.
I wanted to be a mom. I mean, even though my mother hated being a mother in many ways, well, at least on some days, I just remember, she just remembers when I was 3 years old, just being like, everyone would ask me, what do I want to be? And as I got a little older, I wanted to be a doctor and a mom. And that's what I am. So it was very simple to me that being a mother was first and foremost, and still is, really what floats my boat.
was I wanted to be a nun. And anybody who knows me knows that the orders were shaking in their boots at the thought of my possibly wanting to be a nun. But I had a really practical reason for wanting to be a nun. I went to an Anglican boarding school in Swaziland, and the food that we had in the dining halls was really terrible. And my dad is a priest, and when he would come and visit, we got invited to the convent to eat. And the nuns had really good food. And so I decided this is what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a nun so I can have good food. And then I wanted to be a diplomat. During the struggle against apartheid, I had this dream that I would one day be South Africa's representative to the United Nations. And then I visited the United Nations and was involved in some of the conferences around the World Conference Against Racism, and I knew I was not meant to be a diplomat. So I'm still trying to work out what I want to be when I grow up. So,
Thank you. When I was younger, I wanted to be a flight attendant because I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. Growing up in Japan, the small island, I always wanted to see. And then, of course, there's a drama and soap opera in Japan that I was growing up, and then there was soap opera about flight attendant, and having a good time, flying all around. That's what I wanted to be. I've never imagined to be a part of the spiritual, institution and being the reverend. Interesting enough, becoming a reverend, I get to travel, and in a meaningful way, meet people. It's great. Thank you.
I think because I grew up in a number of places that the first thing I thought of was something, I didn't know these words, but international relations. I was going to help people understand one another, be more peaceful, etc. So that theme, in a certain way, has stayed with me. The other one that was there for a while through high school was to be a doctor. So I was in a special program where you got to meet with doctors and see what they were doing. Something actually I wish existed today, that I actually got to see some hands-on first things at a pretty young person. But in the end, I never considered education. And actually, more of my career has been around schools and education and that. So.
I grew up in a very patriarchal family with 4 brothers. And it was before women's lib. It was before, at least in my part of the world, women were valued. And I knew in 4th grade that I had to do something about my values. I wanted to grow up and be pretty, but I wanted to be able to run fast. And I think that was my childish metaphor for saying I wanted to be feminine, whatever that meant. And I wanted to be a strong person in whatever I wanted to do. And I've held on to that since 4th grade. And I also wanted to be a teacher, and I also at times wanted to be a nun.
Very well said. Then I guess moving on, as you're growing up, was there something that you wish you would have known beforehand that you know now? Is there anything that you wish, anything that you wish you would have known before present? Mm-hmm. Anyone can start. We can start in the middle. Okay.
Shake things up.
There's many things that I guess I wish I knew. But I guess, I've come to conclusion that even though you knew, things doesn't work out. But I think more importantly, the process of knowing is more important than actually know. Because in Japan, there's a saying, detour or going around is actually a shortcut. So to getting around to get to the point is actually a shortcut. Yeah, so that's the experience. So to me, it was okay for not knowing. But because I didn't know, I get to do that detour. I get to experience more. So I think, in a conclusion, what I said, I had come to think of it, maybe I wish I knew, but it's okay I didn't know, because that experience of detouring was precious.
I think the thing that I wish I had known when I was younger is that as a woman, taking care of myself is part of being me, and that it is good and right to take care of myself. Because I grew up too in a very patriarchal society, and the idea was that, you know, women made sure that everybody else was taken care of before you sat down, before you went to bed, that, you know, the house was straight, everybody's clothes were ready for tomorrow, and even when we're on vacation, you know, make sure that everybody has their towel and all the rest of it. And I finally came to the realization that, you know, it is right to say, no, I'm looking after me, and that it's a powerful and important statement to make in the world.
I grew up in New York partly, but in Connecticut as well. Nothing against Connecticut, but we didn't talk about anything real. So I grew up in a home, although my mother talked about a lot of crazy, unreal things. There was no discussion about politics, really. There was no discussion about what the world was. My mother hid the Peace Corps from me because she didn't want me to go. So she never, any pamphlets would come, she'd hide them, you know, throw them in the garbage can. There was no real conversation about social justice, human rights. It was a little bit like living in Stepford, for those of you who have seen the movie Stepford Wives. And so I grew up in this really sheltered place, emotionally and not really emotionally, but in cognitively. And so when I figured out there's this whole freaking world out there where there's crazy stuff going on, and there's this whole, you can work for social justice, there's people who need people who have college education to work for them and to work with them, work side by side with them. It was the most enlightening thing I have ever experienced. Like a whole light bulb went up. I moved from basically New England to Boulder, Colorado. For those of you who've been to Boulder, it was like, whoa! There's a whole big world out there. So I think that for me, it's making sure we really take our children and give them as many different experiences as possible, even if we have to do that through books and literature and film at first because we can't travel. You know, I've taken my children to India to meet the Dalai Lama for a month, you know, like all these different things. By the time my son was 12, he'd been to 3 countries and for a month each. And, you know, his view on the world, my daughter's favorite book is, you know, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. My kids understand the nuances of Southern Hemisphere debt from the Northern Hemisphere. I never even learned that till I was a junior in college. And so I guess for me, it's like there's a big world out there with a lot of issues, and that we are so powerful because we're educated, because we can have enough time to pick our heads up and look around and see, where do I want to spend my energy? Where do I want to use my privilege? And that was the most enlightening thing that I've ever experienced. And I wonder how many other children are out there just ho-hum, getting good grades on my in school, trying to get my SAT and ACT scores up so I can get into the best school I can, and forgetting that there's a whole world out there that needs our help.
I wish I had known that I was strong. I wish I had known that I was capable. Today, I still struggle with those things. Am I strong? Am I capable? I'm working toward that, but I'm still in process. I also know now that we are all one. I had little inklings of that as a child, but that is so much part of my core, part of my spirit now, that in spite of our differences, our similarities pull us together. I think so often of the words of Marianne Williamson, and I'll just quote a couple of things she said, that it is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us, and that we are all born to manifest the good in us, and that good is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And I think of that in the Buddhist terms as looking for our Buddha nature.
Actually, that was a perfect lead into what I was thinking. I think, thank you, Nan. I think for me it was understanding that there was, in a sense, that light within each of us and how to go about becoming more of it. And I saw I heard many things that I think were helpful, but I was not, unlike Kate, was exposed to a great deal growing up about the world and the possibilities in that. But it was more like, how do you become the greatest, in full humility, how can you actually merge with love or light? That may sound different, but that's truly what I wish I'd known more about. And maybe if we made it more simply, I wish there had been more done about peace building and some of these skills, that we valued that in education as core to becoming. It's like in service learning, we talk about reflection, but we don't teach that so much. In other words, it's in that area, but in general, you could go through school and learn a great deal, but not become self-reflective necessarily. And I think it's probably one of the core things to becoming and being who you are and honoring that.
Very well said. Going on with this idea of knowledge, how does knowledge empower you as a woman and you as a peace builder in this world?
You know, I actually, when I read that question, I thought back to my mother, because she is someone who read things she always wanted to know both sides of an issue. She had her opinion, but she said, Pam, when I talk to other people, they may come from a different side. I've got to know. So I think if you really are someone who seeks knowledge, that it allows you to converse with many people, but it also allows you to examine your own thoughts and to consider really who you are and where you want to be. But that much said, is knowledge, I would say to me, I seek more wisdom. I have known many people who are very well read, okay, can talk about anything, and yet they have very little wisdom. And wisdom to me brings clarity, and it is something we all feel when we're in the presence of it. So that's what I seek, but I still honor the idea of being, in a sense, well-read and well-informed. But I think ultimate knowledge is the knowledge of who you are and how we are connected and the power of that.
I think she copied me. That's exactly what I was going to say. The knowledge cells, to me, does not empower me, but when you have a knowledge and you put it into action, that is become part of you. That experience is truly a part of you. That's enlightenment. That is the wisdom. That is empowered me. Agree with you totally. Thank you.
I don't know what I'm going to say.
We don't need to have everyone answer if we don't.
We don't have to answer.
No, okay. Moving on to a lighter question. What is the coolest place you traveled to?
Well, you want to go? Go ahead.
Can we pass
Well, there are two places that come to mind. One of them, obviously, is Dharamsala, India, where the Dalai Lama lives. Just to experience this interesting bicultural community where it's an Indian, the Tibetans live in exile in this little community in northern India. And so it's an Indian town, and then it's also a Tibetan town. So there's people who are all moved there to be near His Holiness. And so having my children there, we spent a lot of time in the afternoon walking around, going to the shops, doing all the things, and you put your prayers in the wall, and we did it all. And so just thinking about this interesting experience where if you walk by a Tibetan, you're saying Tashi Delek is how you say hello, but you say Tashdele. And you just, when the Tibetans do this, they're doing this, which is the lotus and the jewel, right? So you have your heart and it's surrounded by your knowledge. And if you have one without the other, you're out of balance, right? So they basically walk around all day, Tashdele, everyone you're passing on the path, Tashdele, which is basically hello, but it's this beautiful meaning of you need knowledge and you need compassion, and those two together are what create wisdom, right? And then you have the Indians who are walking by you saying namaste, 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 which means the light in me honors the light in you. So it's just an interesting place. The energy there is so vibrantly spiritual without being religious, and to be able to experience that with your children, and then having a blonde-haired, blue-eyed little boy with you. The Tibetan monks loved him, and so they would hold his hand everywhere he went. A lot of it was very hilly, and I think they just wanted them to pull him up them up the hill. But you know, if he was in a we were checking emails or something like that, and they were on Skype with other people in Tibet, they would pull Carter onto their lap and point and go, look, look, you know, like he was this fruitcake freak, and you know, kind of like we do to like monks in their orange robes, like, oh, look, look. So it was a very reverse situation where Carter really stood out, and he embraced it all. He let them manhandle him and manipulate him and point at him and touch his head and stroke his hair, and so it was a very, very cool experience. I also this year got to go to East Timor, which is a small island country in the Indonesian archipelago, although it's not part of Indonesia, and it's only been a democracy for a few years. And just watching, and Jose Ramos Horta, the president of East Timor, is on our board. He's one of our laureates. So being able to experience a brand new country, technically, from the perspective of somebody you know, and like so being able to talk to him about like, so what are you doing about this? Like, it's like very bizarre to be able to talk to a president of a country like, so how do you deal with the fact that, you know, nobody speaks the same language? So how do you educating people, and having them be able to just sort of say, well, it's really kind of sucks, you know? So watching a small democracy and being able to be there and ask these questions about how a country is run and how it works. How do you handle things like reconciliation with people who are really 30 years of oppression? And so I think those two places really stand out to me as really helping me understand the world.
Strangely enough, the coolest place that I traveled is actually in South Africa, and it's a place. The reason that it was cool for me is having been there at 3 different times. So it's a rural community in the Eastern Cape called Matatiele, and I was there in the late 80s, early 90s, under apartheid, and where there were no opportunities for people. It was a migrant labor community, and it was in the midst of a lot of political violence. And then I was able to go back the second time as an election monitor in 1994 for our first democratic election, and to see the pride and the celebration and to be part of that in this community of people that I had got to know, having lived with them for almost a year, and the hope that what was the new South Africa going to look like, and what were the opportunities that were around the corner for people. And then to go back then 3 years later and to find this community that when I was there had no running water, no electricity, no school, to see a school, electricity in people's homes, public phones. I know that doesn't sound like it's a huge thing, but to have public phones right there, and running water, and to have people show me around their new clinic, that for me is the coolest experience I've ever had.
The coolest place I was able to travel to was Egypt. That makes me feel the coolest was the experience that I have there. I went there as one of the representatives from the Shinyoen organization, and I went there to participate as a taiko drummer, that is a Japanese drumming, and we had this cultural exchange event there, and we had the collaboration concert with the Japanese drum together with the local Nile band, which is the Egyptian style music band. And what amazed me was that we only have a few days of rehearsal, and at first we have a little bit of a conflict as a music-wise in collaboration, but in the end we come to harmonize it. And Japanese drum with this Asian drums, and that was wonderful. And they were able to have the concert in front of pyramid and Sphinx and everything. And it's truly the oneness that you talked about. Even though where we come from is totally the opposite side of the world, come as one on the stage, and that was a very much cool experience. But in Japan, there's a saying that wherever you are, wherever you live, becomes paradise. So in the Egypt, that was great. But New York, the coolest. Just because of people. People are very cool. Very talented. Thank you.
I think we are copying each other because what I was going to say as kind of your ending teaching, not New York, but the one before that, is that I think I have several places I've loved that were cool, but I think the deeper learning for me in the Sustaining the Soul That Serves program that I've worked with, when we would open it and people were coming to a retreat, we would have them bring a little sand or dirt in like a vial and some water from those places on the planet that most spoke to them, okay, that was most about them. And so in one case, a woman had brought something from her pueblo, and I got to travel with her. She got to know her quite well, to her pueblo to interview her grandmother. And when I got to this pueblo, and she had just spoken in the most beautiful terms of it, it was extremely humble, very desert-like, a lot of poverty there in that. And for her, it was honestly one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And I have never forgotten that, because I think sometimes we think in terms of these amazing things or whatever, but it's what speaks to us. It's our roots and what's there. So I find it, ever since then, very hard to say what's the coolest place on the planet, because there are many cool places on the planet.
Two cool places I have visited continue to speak to me and call me back. One was Hiroshima, with some colleagues and students from the Blake School. The Shinyuen Foundation was wonderful to bring us to a trip to Japan. We saw the embassy, we saw so many lovely things. What really spoke to me and to the students and the other adults was Hiroshima. We were nervous to go because we were Americans going to a city that we had destroyed. And the people were gracious. It was all about reconciliation. It was all about holding hands and walking into the future together. I have chills even now as I talk about it, because that to me speaks about our hope for the future and the importance of peace. Hiroshima was and continues to be a very important place to me. Another place is the small country town of Naivasha, north of Nairobi, Kenya, at the other side of the Rift Valley. Beautiful, lovely countryside. And for 5 years, I've been going there for the summers. 5 years ago, when I first went, I was almost frightened to go because I knew girls that were the throwaway girls that were starving on the street and saved, hopefully, from prostitution as the only way to live, were taken to this orphanage. And it was pretty dismal. There was no electricity at that time, no running water, and shacks made out of cow dung and sticks. And yet, as so many of you have said, this to these children was the most beautiful place on earth. And it was because they occasionally got food, they were getting a beginning of an education. Most importantly, they had mamas. And mamas is the Swahili word for an adult that cares for me. And that speaks to me of the importance of hope.
Wow. Another question that is, I think, a little bit that's relevant to this idea of the world is, what change do you wish to see in the world? So, anyone can start.
I think that the change that I think is fundamental for us in the world is seeing one another, actually seeing one another, and when we look at one another to see a fellow human being. I think that there are so many ways that we close our eyes to seeing each other, by giving labels, by deciding that we know the story of that person we know as other. One of my good friends is somebody who has spent a lot of his life homeless, and he was telling me about one of the programs that they have called Room at the Inn. That's now a national program, and he was telling me that it's such a wonderful program. We go there, they give us wonderful meals, they give us clothes sometimes, they offer haircuts and different things. He said, but almost every time I walk in there as a homeless man and I walk out as a homeless man, nobody asks my name or wants to know my story. And so for me, that is what I would like to see. I would like to see us giving ourselves the chance to looking at one another and seeing another human being with a story that has something to tell us about our world.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Coming from New York, I like to see the world as no honking while driving. So what it is that every time, I don't know if you, Kate, experienced that. I'm just kidding, but. Well, that's true. That's true. When you're driving, as soon as you get out of the garage, people honk me, and can't you wait half a second? You know, people are so into yourself, they don't have time to look in one another. Yeah. But when they honk me, why they honk me? But maybe I can look at them and say, maybe they're in a hurry. Maybe I can understand their heart in that manner. But put it aside, the story about no honking. I would like to see the world of equal opportunity and looking into the beauty in one another. We cannot deny that the woman, as a woman in the history, a lot of sacrifices because of being a woman. And we are what we are now because of the effort that all the women in the history brought up to this point. So I have much appreciation for that effort that all the women had. But still, we'll have a long way to go. But I continue to hope that equal opportunity. And then many of you may face some difficulty because of being a woman or because of being in minority. But in the future, I would really like to see that equal opportunity and looking into as a human, looking into the human earth people, being earth people. That will surely create the harmonious world.
I can go next. I've had the fortune to work with a woman named Lynn Twist, if anyone know who she is, and she does work called Soul of Money and fundraising from the heart. And one of the things that she's really taught us, I think, is, for me, it was a fundamental shift in how I see the world. And what she talks about is the lie of scarcity and the truth of sufficiency. And that we have created this dynamic in this world where, think about the first game you usually play at a birthday party. It's like musical chairs. What is that teaching our children? You better get yours. And you better do whatever you can to push each other out of the way to get your chair. Right? And so what she talks about is the fact that back in the 70s, they've pretty much figured out, some of the scientists, that we actually do have enough resources in the world to take care of everybody. It really isn't survival of the fittest anymore. We do have enough to feed everybody, to educate everybody at a very basic level, and there's always going to be different levels. But the fact that we keep this lie going that I don't have enough time, I didn't get enough sleep, right? I don't have, I don't have enough clothes. I don't have enough vacation time. It's this, that's why we're honking, right? And so why do we tell that lie to ourselves continually? And she does this great monologue, like, I woke up, I didn't get enough sleep because I didn't get enough done yesterday. And it's like, it's like this whole lie, right, that we tell ourselves every day. I'm not skinny enough. I'm not rich enough. There's all this deficiency model. Think about what's going on in your head. I'm not pretty enough, right? I'm not popular enough. What are the lies that you are telling yourself or the people around you want you to believe? And if you free yourself of that and say, there's the truth of sufficiency. We all have exactly what we need. Right? And she talks about being in Africa with these women who had all their children had just died of malnutrition and everything else, and they actually had this deep contentment with, we need a little more food and water, but other than that, we have everything that we need. So how could we not have every single thing that we need? And so think about in our lives, where is this idea of sufficiency? We all did get enough sleep. We all do have enough of love, of everything else. So focus on the things that are positive in our world and not on the things that we're deficient in. And it really shifts, and it's how we get to that light. It's how we see each other. Just this room, I just thinking about all the love and the respect and the beauty that's in this room right now. This isn't a conference. This is a gathering of Earth people. Right? And the sufficiency where some people are like thinking, oh, should I eat breakfast? I got to go meet so-and-so. I got to prepare for my workshop. Really deprogramming ourselves is what I hope will happen in this world, to move beyond this lie of scarcity, to really embrace this truth of sufficiency and gratitude.
I like what everyone else has said. What I put down was a hunger for authentic leadership in almost every arena of life. And we need more leaders who are truly have integrity and honesty, transparency, but that are not materially driven in a way with motives that have no concern for the people around them. So I truly feel that would make a difference. I also think if we had more focus on the development of inner peace as a way to outer peace, and again, that was valued. And then, of course, I think we're always measured by how we treat our young people. And there are so many things that are not right on the planet still for young people. So I would like to, whether it be education, whether it be just having a home or place to live in and to be loved, I think everyone has the right to be loved. Everyone has the right to have models of peace in their life and that. And we have not achieved that at this point.
I trust that peace is achievable through service. I trust in kindness, compassion, connection, courage. I pray for a gentle welcoming of others until we realize that there is no other. And of course, I believe in hope for enough food, shelter, education, and care for every person in the world.
Very well said. Looking around the room, there's a lot of young people here and also a lot of women present. And I think something that would be really helpful is what is your advice to young women? And tap into your wisdom to supply that. Anyone would like to start?
I think that the advice I would give you would be gentle with yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. You know, especially if you are active in trying to make this world a better place, there are going to be days when things go completely wrong and it feels like nothing is right and nobody cares about you, and you don't have to be up all the time. That when those days come and you feel low and low energy, it's your right. Be kind and gentle to yourself. Take that time to take care of yourself. Lock yourself in your room, throw the pillows around, eat a bar of chocolate, that was mine. It's okay, you don't have to do that. But whatever it is that is about caring for you and making you feel better, so that, because those days are going to come. And if you set yourself up to think that I am going to be a constant struggler for justice and I'm always going to be ready, then you are going to wear yourself out. And you need you and we need you. So be kind to yourselves.
When I see all of you, it's different face, different figure, different personality, but each one of you has beauty in yourself, that we call it Buddha nature, what she was talking about too. It is like the flower, the only flower in the world. And in that said, each one of you have different mission in this lifetime. And so in a society, it's easy to compare with others. That person is better than me. I would do better than that person. But you don't have to do that. You have unique mission in the world. So find the beauty in you and move forward with that. Your spirit of servicing others, the sincerity, it really inspired me. So find the beauty in you that only you have and utilize that for others.
I was thinking we often emphasize so much, what you're doing, how to do it, but not who's doing it. And who's doing it is the presence of who you are. And so to really not, again, it's been a theme of some of the things I've said, but I think it would be to think about what do people feel when they're around you? What is your presence? And how do we get to that? And we get to it through self-reflection, and we get to it through facing our fears, facing the challenges, not being afraid of them, but knowing freedom's on the other side of that. And I don't say that lightly, because it's easy to be involved in instant participation, particularly in the current world we live in. And so it takes a commitment to say, I really want to know who I am. I don't want these fears to control me in that. I'm going to be different than that. So that would be one piece of advice. I think the other is that often we think of the big things, and some of you in the room, if not many, will maybe stand for incredible things and be known people. We may know your names, but really what forms us is often the things that no one else sees. They're the little things. It's when someone's around us and needs our help, and we don't really have time, but we give that time. It's our honoring the elderly in our lives. It's helping the sick. That's what forms us. This other is important. If you're called to stand, stand. But it's not what will necessarily form who you are. It's the pre-work. And I think finally, and this ties into Naomi's, it's like to find a way to sustain yourself. One thing, I had the privilege in the early years of Peace Jam to be a consultant to that program. And what I saw from the Nobel laureates is that every one of them had some way they sustained themselves for the long run. It wasn't just what they won their prize for. They're in there for the long run because they believe in these things. And so they've each found ways that they sustain themselves day in and day out. So think of that, because if we're mission-driven, it asks a lot of you. And what I've found is, even at conferences like this, when we've offered workshops on sustaining, I've had a lot of people say, I'd love to be there, but I really need to go here for my work. See, so it's like we really won't give it priority. But if we can sustain ourselves, then we can continue to give and do the work we believe in. So that's a very important part.
I think of two women that gave me some great advice that has been meaningful to me and perhaps might be to you. And one was some words of wisdom from Pam Toole. And she talked about self-care as a responsibility, not a luxury. And that was a whole new way for me to look at self-care. Someone else that I had the privilege of having lunch with a couple of years ago was Jane Goodall. And she talked a lot about follow your dream. And with that, she talked a lot about find out who you really are by following your dream. Be courageous enough to follow what is inside you. Have some courage and find your own integrity. She was saying be the best person you can be, and the person that defines that is you.
I think that that's a nice segue for me. I think that often we wonder who we're going to be in the world and how it's supposed to work, and we have so many parameters and people telling us. But I think that I've learned from many of the women Nobel Peace Laureates that we work with who've had incredible adversity in their lives and really had to dig deep to figure out how to keep going. And it's this idea of serendipity, right? We don't know where we're going to go. Right? And if you look at most women who end up somewhere, who have a story to tell, which I really don't, but it's because they followed their intuition. And they listened for, here are my goals, like I really want to do this with my life. Then you have to open it up to the universe and then watch for the signs. You can't say, I really want to do this in the world and then shut it off and go over here. You have to keep looking for the signs. The universe will talk to you, right? Whether it's God or whoever you believe in, the universe will, if you set your intentions the right way, the answers will come to you. But often we're so busy, we forget to look. Right? And these signs drop in our laps, and these opportunities drop in our laps all the time, and we don't see them because we've blinded and we're honking and have our blinders on. So my advice to people is lift your heads up. listen to what the universe is telling you, set your intentions on positive things, and then watch things fall into place like magic dominoes. It happens every single time to every single person who's ever had that experience. So open yourselves up. Say, you know what I really want to do is I'd really like to work in Africa. Okay, well, set that intention and then just begin to talk to people. Say, hey, you know, I'd really like to work in Africa. And someone will say, oh, my uncle, he goes there every year. Maybe you could, you know, go with him. All of a sudden, opportunities will come to you. So set your intentions, and they may change, and be okay with that too. But you are water, and you flow. And what happens with the water around a rock? It just creates a whole new path. You're water, you flow. And when the universe will take care of you if you're listening and you're paying attention. So think about today, set an intention for today, and then watch what comes to you as you, because you're with all these people for the next 2 days, right? And these next 3 days. Set some intentions and then go out and begin to talk to people about those intentions and see what comes to you. And I guarantee you, if you see any of us later in this session, tell us, right, what came to you because you were open to it.
Well, I think now it's time. We have about 30 minutes for a Q&A. So if anyone in the audience has a question, any burning questions?
Thank you all so much for sharing. I find it so inspiring, and you just have so many beautiful words that I can't keep writing them down. My question for all of you is if you have any thoughts on how we might be able to foster more women in leadership roles and in leadership roles in spirituality, and also more respect for women's stories and perspectives.
The organization that I serve is a woman leadership, woman in leadership. Truly, I think it's valuable because, particularly being a woman, it has the leadership come from kind and gentle and compassionate. Not that men's are not, but women's are more in that manner. That really empowers, inspires people. Not to compete with the men leadership, but as a woman, because of the woman, something that you can do that a man probably, you know, are not capable of. And so, to me, and being in the organization, I serve in a way that, as my Dharma mother, the Her Holiness Mother, is also a leadership and in a woman, and she demonstrates the heart of Buddhism, heart of the Buddha, in caring for others, and truly devote herself. So I try to demonstrate that. I try to every day, and you know, I try to put it into her actions. Into my serving in daily life. I'm sorry if I can explain very well, but as a woman, there's things that perhaps men, you know, are not capable, but mindful of that, and it's coming from the really compassionate and devoting for the others. That makes sense to you? I'm sorry.
Two ways that we can encourage young women. One, certainly, and perhaps the most important, is to model it. As women, model this for our younger young women. Another thing that has worked for me and for many women, young women that I work with, is athletics. I think if we can help our young women be strong in their bodies, they can be strong and believe in themselves. Somehow that physical strength transfers to emotional strength and intellectual strength. I've been a ski coach, a rollerblade coach, a swim coach, a track coach, and I cannot begin to tell you the transformation I see in these young women, young girls, when they begin to believe in the power of their own bodies.
We have the opportunity to work with 6 beautiful Nobel Peace Laureate women, and I think role models are important. We have a curriculum from kindergarten all the way up through college, and so when we are teaching these 5-, 6-year-olds around the world, about Rigoberta Menchú Tum and the work she did in Guatemala and the struggles she had as a little girl, and how powerful she is, even though she's only this big, and Shirin Ebadi, who you're going to meet, she's here, and that's why I have to keep my cell phone on. I apologize in case she needs me. But Shirin Ebadi is a human rights lawyer from Iran. She was the first female judge in Iran at the age of 24. I'm not sure which thing is more shocking, right? And she is so freaking feisty and so beautiful, and she's just became a grandmother, and so she's fully a mother, and she's fully a human rights activist. And I think that as many different programs, it doesn't have to be Peace Jam, but in Peace Jam it's cool because they get to learn about these people's lives from when the time they were children all the way up till they were adults. Then if they can attend a Peace Jam conference as a teenager, they actually get to meet this person, spend 2 days with them, asking questions, learning. They know everything about these young people, these role models. And I think that that's the one thing I think Peace Jam really offers. It's these role models aren't people who have passed away. It's not Martin Luther King and these people who are no longer available. They can ask them. So now we've got this issue of abortion or whatever it is. I'm grappling with that. As a spiritual woman, how can you help me think about that now? Or conflicts that are happening in the world. These people are dealing with these things on an ongoing basis, so they can kind of be able to do a sounding board for them as well. So I think that just making sure there's so many programs out there for young people, but I think that the bottom line is exposing them to as many different role models as possible who are strong women and men. Who have compassion, because I think for young women, seeing beautiful men who really embody all of these principles, they're really not just owned by women, but I think it's, this idea of this oneness and bringing our young boys into that light as well. Having a young man and a young woman in my household, I worry more about the young man, to tell you the truth, than I do about my young woman. She's friggin' fine, she's got every bit of self-confidence you can imagine. And my son is really struggling with, well, I guess I'm just a piece of crap because everyone tells me I'm this white privileged man, and I don't feel that in my heart. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And so I think we need to care and really provide for our young boys as well, and give them those role models of men who have figured out how to live in balance and walk that middle path just as much as our young women.
I just think of 2 programs because we don't always have Nobel Peace. I love that program, but we maybe not have those in our backyard, so to speak. One is called Girls in Action. It's a program started by a dear friend here in town. And what she's done, she went to some of the high schools where many of the young women were dropping out and not doing well. And what she does is she combines leadership training with also a service project. And there's a real emphasis on the power within you, that we each have that if we'll draw on it. And what she also has, she does some things in large group, but some in small, where there are role models of different cultures that do women. And then she has these ongoing things during the year. There's a tea during the year and whatever, where all kinds of women role models come in that. So that's one. The other, which is males and females, because I do really agree with what Kate was saying, that with the Sustain the Soul That Serves, that was something we did where we looked at journey to the creative self, the inner self, and the physical self. So we looked at many different levels for young people, and really saw as they came to become more comfortable with themselves, then there's more sense of being a leader in whatever field you choose. So I just think we have to have more platforms and more ways separate from, and I know it's so hard in the regular school day or whatever to do it, but I see it happen. When I do, I see change. Anybody else?
Hi. I actually have a loud voice. I probably would have needed this. Forgive me, I came in late if you've already spoken to this, but I have a particular burden for the elderly. And in America, I feel that we hide our elderly. We're one of the few cultures that truly we hide the elderly. And I think it's one of the groups that's truly left out in America. I love the Gathering of Elders model that Service Learning teaches, and I tried that myself this year in a successful way, I feel, but I'm still a beginner, and I want to so much in the schools teach our children to respect the dignity of age and the wisdom. You said seek wisdom, and to acknowledge that yes, wisdom can come with age and often does. And I would just really love to sit at your feet and see what you have to say about that, if you have ideas and models that you've already followed.
I totally agree with you about the importance of our elders and how we, as a society, don't give them the respect and care that perhaps they need and deserve. Every lower school student at our school 4 times a year as a class goes to visit a senior care facility. They do things like paint fingernails, sing songs, bake cookies together. So in the lower school, it's simply about connection with our elders and learning again that they are not other. Middle school students 4 times a year go to different elders' homes and wash windows, clean garages, paint doors. It's about connection. And again, it's not a one-time deal. The class goes 4 times a year. Lots of snow shoveling because we're in Minnesota. In upper school, we have a group called the Sunshine Club, and it's a group of students that do poetry or do musical presentations or do readings, and they go twice a month to different care facilities, again with repetition, to bond, to connect with our seniors. And once a month, we have a group of 40 different elders come to our school, and we have birthday parties for them. I thought this would be something that was kind of sappy, and the upper school kids love it. So the senior citizens are driven to our school. We have a lunch, then we have some entertainment, and then we have a birthday party celebration with presents and cake and ice cream. And it's simply about connection and helping our students understand that this is not scary. Getting older is not scary, death is not scary. And also we talk a lot about how do you, as a young child, what healthy habits do you develop so you can be as healthy as long as you can be? How can you live a healthy, long life? And also respecting the differences that might come with old age. So again, it's all about, I think, about connection.
I just want to share with you the perspective in a Buddhist way. Master Shinjo Ito, the head of the founder of the Shinyo-en, once talked about the elderly or seniors. The 70 years old is actually in the Buddha's realm. The realm of Buddhist was still young. It's just the beginning as a trainer, and that was inspiring to me. So for us, it's like a baby. It means that I think life is, a continuous learning experience until the end. And that is the perspective in Buddhism. And also we celebrate the Senior Citizens Day to offer our gratitude to their life, their foundation, and their knowledge, their enlightenment. So in the Buddhist term, the elderly, is paying a respect. Very elderly seniors is a very important and respectable.
I just to flip it a little bit is I think that we don't realize maybe that we all lose. That we talk about what are we doing for the elders, but the reality is the fact of not having elders in our lives is a loss for all of us and for our children in particular. And as somebody who was raised with my grandparents, lived with them for a while and then had them in, at home, and that there's something so precious about those things for me, because I knew that when my parents lost their minds, there was a sane person in the house I could go to, and I think that we have lost as a society and particularly our young people have lost the stories, the connections, the knowing that there is something special that of the relationship between the old and the very young. And when we cut that off, we cheat our young people of a great gift. And so maybe when we're thinking about programs, maybe we need to not put them in, not that there's anything wrong with service projects, but I think that we could look at them rather than saying to our young people, we need you to go out and help these elderly. We'd say, we have a special treat for you that you are going to have the opportunity to sit and talk and have the time where it is just sitting and talking and hearing the stories and sharing their stories. And I think that is a really huge gift that we give to our community. We can give to our community as a whole.
I guess I just don't have anything really to add. Service learning, we do quite a bit of intergenerational work, as you were talking about, and I think that's wonderful. But each of us has a grandparent, a neighbor. So I guess I always want to bring it back to everyone in this room. I mean, because sometimes you sit there and you're like, blah, 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 blah. Thinking, again, stop and think, who am I not reaching out to in my own community? Do I have a grandparent who I could just have a cup of tea with? Can I go visit more often and just sit and talk? And I think I always like to bring it back to the personal. So each of you in this room, before you leave, who is it that you've maybe excluded from your life that you could really be benefiting from having that relationship with? Because it really will be you probably that's benefiting, maybe more even so than they do. So that's all.
I'd first of all like to say thank you to all of you. It's very powerful. I sit here and my mother is kind of ill at this time, so to sit here and listen to all of you, it really hits home. But I'd like to say thank you. And this is the first year that I've done service learning, and there's just so much that you can do with our young, both male and female, that it would be so very powerful. And like you said, I think we miss out on a lot of that because we're trying to do the service thing. If you just sit and listen, sometimes I think you can learn so much more, and I think we all miss out on that. We as adults, the children, and also the elderly, because what can we do for you if you can just sit down? That would be wonderful. That would be what they wanted, but we overlook that. We want to do something. We want to give something. So what I would like to know is if this CD would be available. I know you're taping it. Would that be available for us to possibly get by whatever? I would very much like to share it with. I have a younger daughter who's 10. And I have one that was able to come with us to this service learning conference this year. But I would love to share it with my service learning kids, because I mean it just is. We can't write it all. I wish I could write as fast as you ladies have spoke, but I would love to get that and share that with as many people as I could.
We're planning to share the videos of these through the Generator School Network website.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies.
Is there another, someone else with a question? Oh, there's Chris.
I grew up with a very opinionated family, and I'm 11 years old and I already know what I want to be. I want to be a leader in this world, but what obstacles can get in my way of being a young woman wanting to be in a leadership position?
Should I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your trying to be the leader. Really inspired me. Your spirit really inspired me, and I hope that you continue to have that in you. None of us cannot expect what kind of hardship that you may face in the future. I wish I can tell you, but no one can. But what I can tell you is that whatever the hardship that you may face, is as long as you have the heart to do the service, for the others, whatever the hardship that you may face, but you will be able to overcome as long as you think positively, as long as you think to do for the others in an altruistic way. And there is a way to overcome. There will have people to support you, because you're not doing to yourself, but you are trying to be the leader for others. So please know that. And as long as you have the spirit of thinking of others, you will be supported. Because the truth is one, because you are doing the right things, you will have the support.
I think that, if I work with these incredible women, these Nobel Peace Laureates, and I think about Shirin Ebadi. Okay, so not only was she the first female judge in Iran at the age of 24, but then she was one of the people who wanted this government change, and so they voted for the Ayatollah Khomeini to come in. And the first thing he did when he came into power was he told her she was worthless, she could not be a judge anymore, and she had to cover herself. So she was like, oh, well, that was a little bit of a mistake. But you talk about obstacles. Right, so she became the clerk in her own law chambers, her judge chambers. And she stomped around for a few months doing that until she finally just quit and went home. For 10 years, she sat in her house because she really wasn't allowed to even be on the streets unless she was covered with a man or, and talk about obstacles. So hopefully you'll never face anything like she will face. But remember, as these women are giving me so much wisdom, you're water. Right? She found a way. Water can even flow uphill. Water can flow underground. So wherever you need to go, you just keep flowing. And what Betty Williams from Northern Ireland always says is, she goes, if people get in your way and tell you can't do it, spit in their eye and get them out of the way. Because really, they're just dragging your energy down. So surround yourself by the people who you know are supporting you. And when people tell you you can't, be polite. You don't have to spit in their eye, but you know what I mean. Just say, oh, thanks for the advice. I know you don't think it'll work. And go over and find some people who at least believe in you. So you're water. And just remember that at all times.
Another question.
Thank you for being here. This has been a wonderful opportunity for me to just sit and reflect and learn. First of all, I just wanted to share a little bit. We had the conversation earlier about intergenerational connection, and I'm on the board of a Hmong women's organization locally based here in St. Paul. And I just want to say that for the last 2 years, we've been experimenting with an intergenerational retreat where we invite one person and they invite the young people and the elders and their families to come and connect. And there's a lot of power and truth to that. And we actually within the Hmong community itself here in America, a lot of our elders feel like they don't know, they don't have power, they can't contribute to their communities, and we switch the table, and we're trying to shift paradigm, where we say, no, we invited you because we believe you have wisdom to share, and actually, in fact, you will be teaching us how to sepandao, the traditional Hmong sewing technique, or we ask them to teach us how to sing kutsia, which is the traditional Hmong singing, and it reverses the table where they're very humble at first, and they say, I don't know anything, I'm not educated, I'm not sure what I can teach you, but I will try. And when we give them that platform that they do have wisdom to share, it changes the dynamics of our relationship. And then we also switch it and say, young people, you guys are going to facilitate activities for us, and we're going to have fun. And for the elders, it's a switch in that I can have fun with my daughters or my nieces. So I think you could do so much more than even service learning in terms of building that connection. There's a lot of power in that. So if you're interested in learning from what we've been experimenting with, I would love to share that with you. My question to the panelists is, you guys started to talk a little bit about sustainability, sustaining your passion, sustaining your spirit in this kind of work, because you will encounter those rocks that will be in our path every now and then. How do you guys sustain your passion and your energy for this work? Because it's not always easy. So I would love to hear from you and learn from you all.
I know for me it's been prayer and meditation. And so if I'm traveling and have to be up early for a workshop or that or anything, if I have to get up at 4, 5, 6, whatever it takes, I want that to be the foundation to set the day. And I have, just like as I was walking down the hall here, I have certain, and it's not it's in a Christian way, but it's like a mantra. It's something I say. No one gave it to me. It's my own, but it's uplifting and powerful, and I just walk with that. And I used to do it, and I'd find I didn't realize it had just become a part of me. So there are things that, there are other things. I love to be in nature or take a walk or whatever, but the one that's daily is I won't go through my day without the prayer and meditation. And I think it can become your day. You can be anywhere. It's like anyone you meet or whatever. If there's someone I meant to speak to, please let it happen, or let me have the words or the right thing at that moment. So that for me, and I remember, Naomi, meeting your father and him saying that how he realized how many people, he was just so humbled by how many people had prayed for him through the years that he didn't know even knew about him. And again, the power of that. Yeah.
Another part of sustaining is sustaining the physical self, and I think we in this country forget that. I certainly forget that all too often, and I need to really focus on getting enough physical activity every day. I do need a lot of sleep, and I have to be very careful to eat well, and those physical things are a beginning of sustainability for me, as well as time with friends.
Yeah, time with friends is very important for me, to have a community, a support community, and to make the time, as I said in the beginning, to make the time to take, as I was saying to people, take care of yourself. I do that. That was one of my lessons, and one of the people who was really important for me was Betty Williams, the Nobel laureate, and we were speaking at the same place, coming in about half an hour apart in flights, and I got there and they said, well, you don't have time to rest or anything, your flight was late, so you need to go upstairs and get dressed and just come down, and we're going straight to the reception. And I did that. I was like, and I come down and Betty is just checking into the hotel. They said, Miss Williams, you don't have time to do anything, you just have to go upstairs and change. She goes, no, I have time. I need the time. I'm going to have the time. If I don't make it to the reception, we'll add something at the end of the presentation for me to meet with people. But I need my time. And I thought, you're allowed to say that? I didn't know that. But that was, for me, the real eye-opening, that taking care of yourself is the fundamental thing, and making that space to do that, whatever that is. And for me, it's having a massage, it's going to get a manicure or pedicure, it's shutting myself in my room and watching murder mysteries for half a day, or but making sure that I make the time for me has been really important, and having those people who care about me and who will say to me when they know I haven't made the time for me, you look awful. You need to do something, and that has been so important.
I'm the one telling Betty she didn't have time to do anything, get down to the reception. And Betty often tells me, no, I'm going to go have a glass of wine and some chicken wings, and you can come and get me in a few minutes. But anyway, I think that for me, it was Rigoberta Menchú Tum when we were at the Red Wing juvenile facility for incarcerated young men. We do Peace Jam out there, used to, and now we're going to be doing the another school. But anyway, she told the young men, she goes, I don't care what your spirituality is, where's East? Where does the sun rise every morning? And she goes, be thankful for that sunrise. And she made them all identify where East was. And she said, I want you to take 30 seconds every day. I want you to face East. I want you to give acknowledgement to the day and to the spiritual energy that comes from the East for you each morning. I want you to ask forgiveness of Mother Earth, Father Sky, or whomever it is that you need to talk to. Then I want you to give gratitude for all those guardian angels and people and things in your life that surround you and are beautiful, even if you're incarcerated. There are people who care about you, and then you can ask for guidance for the day. And she made them practice that and think about it. And when you lay down in your bed at night, think about all the wonderful things and all the gifts that came to you that you are now aware of. And so it really is just about gratitude, and that's what sustains most of these laureates, is they really try to come from this place of gratitude. They're beat up, you know, if you think about it. All they do is travel and talk like your father, who, you know, and it's they give and they give and they give. The other thing that we really work with them on is this idea of channeling the universal energy that comes down from wherever it comes from. And the laureates and the people who get themselves used up are the people who keep trying to give of themselves. And what many of these spiritual traditions teach is you don't need to give yourself. You give the spirit as it comes through you, right? You don't give yourself. You're giving your energy. Just channel it. Let it come right out and give that away to people. And so I think that might be something that be visualizing as you give. Channel it. And give whatever spirit you believe in, give that away. Don't give your energy away, because then you just end up tired. And so that's just a gratitude, and channel the beauty that is around you and give that away.
I think I agree all of you. In the Buddhist point, there is called middle path, the balancing. When you play the guitar, the string is tight, it's not too good, the sound good. Too loose, not too good either. But just the right tightness will give beautiful harmony. So the balance is a middle path is for me too. And again, gratitude, yes. For me, gratitude is very important because I am what I am because of what I do. So when I feel low as a human, you know, it happens. But in that happen, I always go back to the original point where I started. And what would I be if I don't do this? And going back to the point, that gratitude will my spirit up. So the gratitude and balance.
So it's about 10:30 now, and we're going to wrap up. But there was so much wisdom said here and so many beautiful things. I think we should give these ladies a big round of applause.